The HBO show The Wire follows the Baltimore Police Department as they investigate organized criminal activity. And today on the Wright Perspective, we are going to recap and discuss the fourth season of the show, which premiered in September of 2006. And we will determine if this show is indeed a classic from the Wright Perspective. Each episode, we pick a voting symbol that is relevant for the show or movie that we're talking about. And so today, for the fourth season of The Wire, we will rate this show by giving it 1, 2, or 3.
Janai, we didn't even introduce ourselves.
I always do this part first, and then we do the introductions, bro. This is the opening.
Right. Okay.
I know why you. I know why you stole my thunder there, bro.
Sorry.
It's because you don't.
That's that old man brain coming in.
I guess I'm going to check the records. I think you might be wrong. I'm checking the records. But I'm flowing with it.
Well, I got to tell you, I don't think my voting symbol that I was going to propose is very good. So you.
I think you should still do it. Still do it.
1, 2, or 3.
1, 2, 2, or 3 textbooks.
Wait, Jediah.
Because it's about the education system.
Jediah, I legit have that as my idea. It was so and then I started thinking about it being that exam that all of them had to do.
No, my first idea was standardized tests. And I was like, that's I'm not going to say that one.
That was the same thing I thought too.
Oh man, gosh. These ideas are so bad.
Bro, what do you have is the question.
No, you said textbook was one, and what was the other one?
I had backpacks.
Standardized tests.
I also had backpacks.
Oh, that's a good one.
That was one I had. That was it. That was it.
I believe it needs to be the ring. The ring.
Oh, the ring.
Traveled.
The ring that traveled through season 4.
It traveled so much, I could not remember its initiation.
Origins.
I was like, where did
would you like me to take you through the path of the ring?
I remember the ring.
Let's do
the summary. Let's do the summary.
Okay.
And then let's start off with that ring.
And then
if you want, I got it. I got it. If you want me to give it to you, I got it. So just let me know.
We gonna get that, bro. It's the ring.
It's good. It's good.
That's it.
It's good.
That's it. It was power traveling. Oh yes, that's it.
Oh.
Okay.
Hey, I told you last time I got it.
You did.
I got it.
You did. Well, let's do the recap real quick, and and then we're gonna get into it. You know,
do we need to introduce ourselves,
and that's first? Yep, we should. See, Aubrey broke the flow. I just want y'all to know that.
It's Aubrey's fault. You're kidding.
Listen, as the oldest, you bear the brunt of everything, so you're welcome. Keep your sass to a minimum.
First is the worst.
Oh, worst. First is the worst.
Oh my gosh. Brittany, we're usually united against the middle child. I don't know what's going on tonight.
Listen.
We're usually a united force.
Oh my gosh.
Against the evil of the middle child.
Me and Janai, our lips are popping, so we gotta stick together.
Man, this is ridiculous.
Hashtag lipstick alliance.
Well, listen. My name is Aubrey, and I'm the oldest.
I'm Genia, and I'm the middle.
Hashtag rise above.
And I am Brittany. I am the youngest.
And we are the Wright Perspective. Okay, so that was
Wow.
we won't do that again. That wasn't good. Okay.
That
Hey,
was
it might
so
have been
good.
awesome. Who knows? It might have been
I
awesome.
really do feel as though like it should be the right perspective zooms into the center of the screen. The right perspective.
Brittany, don't challenge me. Don't challenge me because you know you're getting pretty good with
It's
these
already
editing.
gonna
I
happen.
know, but
It's going to happen.
she'll be over there trying to figure it out during the podcast.
I
So let's
will.
just keep
It's
it
going to
moving.
happen.
I will. And so, as we mentioned earlier, the show The Wire follows the Baltimore Police Department as they investigate organized criminal activity. They're the through line. And in season 1, the show focused on the local drug trade. In season 2, we got a little bit further up the supply chain and we got a peek into international criminal activity. And we were at the Baltimore docks. In season 3, we were looking at politics. Oh man, corruption. Okay.
Okay.
And in
Could you do
season
that
4,
one more time?
corruption.
That's
Okay.
corrupt. That's corrupt right there.
Yeah. And in season 4, this season, the show focused on the education system in Baltimore. And the system is struggling, folks. Okay. And they give us a really, really comprehensive view. We get a chance to start with the administrators, the school administrators. We get to see them navigating funding and political pressures. Yeah. Fears about public perception, and of course, student retention and learning, teacher support and performance. And we learn about all of the really unfortunate ways that the school system has devised to measure attendance and progress. And it has nothing to do with actual attendance or progress. And we also get it's so sad. And we also get a chance to see the teachers in the schools. They are using tactics that frankly can only be qualified as survival tactics. It's like their passion is there and their commitment is there, but your commitment to children can only go so far. You need tools. You need supplies. You need room to innovate. You need room to tailor learning to meet the children where they are. And guess what? That's the list of things the teachers don't have. Okay? And they're giving each other pep talks. All right. And the more seasoned teachers, they're trying to school the new teachers, but it's like with this apathy. It's almost like this, like success isn't even possible. Do the best you can, and it is just heartbreaking. Yeah. And part of the reason it is so heartbreaking is because we also get to see, the students fall victim to all of this brokenness and all of this failing of the system. The school, because of the nature of the community, and we spend our time in this season really focused on one school, we get a peek into the broader system. And so, it's indicative of what's happening in the schools. In this particular school, the children that are routed into this school, they need the school to be so much more than a place of learning. They need it to be a place where they can get food, get counseling, get socialization skills, or just to have some kind of structure and safety. And we learn about all of the violence and desperation that many of the children experience outside of school. And of course, they bring all of that trauma in the door with them. And the show this season, it introduced us to 4 young men that we'll talk about later. We followed them throughout the season: Dookie, Randy, Michael, Namond. Their circumstances vary, but they're all, they're not great. We're talking about drug addicted parents, sexual abuse. We're watching foster care experiences, some positive, some not. Okay. And of course, the kids in this school and in this community are constantly experiencing and living near and being drawn into the drug trade. And they're drawn into it as a source of income, a source of community, maybe even a source of recreation. And more than anything, they're drawn into it almost as an inevitability. And that's what breaks your heart, because you're watching children that in one and any other circumstance would have many more options on the table and absolutely be picking a different path. And of course, the drug game continues to thrive in Baltimore. And frankly, the drug dealers, they are leveraging better and better business strategies. You know, many of the larger drug
R.I.P. Stringer. R.I.P.
His legacy is intact. His legacy. Many of the larger drug organizations, they banded together to maximize their profits and efficiency. You know, and the others, some are independent, but of course the violence continues, you know, and frankly, they're even getting better at violence, okay, because they're getting better at hiding it. There is one drug organization that we focus on quite a bit this season, led by a man named Marlowe, and his team has taken to hiding bodies in the many, many, many vacant properties in the distressed neighborhoods of Baltimore. And the police are looking for the bodies. Of course, eventually the police, mostly our recurring characters that we've been hanging out with since the first season.
The Avengers.
The Avengers, as Brittany calls them. Eventually, they figure this out, that the bodies are being hidden, but that people are still dying. And it's incredibly problematic. And it's not only problematic because people are dying, dozens and dozens of people, mostly Black men. It's also problematic because it's election season. And the politicians are using these tragedies of the community as political tactics. And they're just parlaying them and not at all necessarily looking for solutions. They're looking for talking points about the solutions. And it is just heartbreaking. And so that is a summary, high level of season 4. And,
so good.
And it was a fantastic summary.
Oh,
yes.
Let me just let you know.
Thank you, bro. Thank you, bro. Thank you, sis. This was hard because I felt like I was making notes on the most depressing tale ever written. You know?
I gotta tell you, it's I realized that even there's no way we'll be able to really grasp all of this in an hour.
You cannot.
So all we can hope to do is just talk to some of the points.
Touch on it.
A little something.
I'm just letting you know, to really grasp what's going on, you got to watch the series and definitely importantly this season. Mm-hmm. And right off the bat, I wanted to ask you guys, well, first of all, did you want me to run through the ring or not?
I think you must. I think you need, because bro, you've teed it up, number one. But number two,
you teed it up.
But number two, it's also a wonderful analogy for what is actually happening. And that is power being
shuffled around.
Hello.
Through violence and pain.
Hello.
Well,
do it, bro. Do it.
The ring, and while I'm doing this, can you look up the officer's name that was messing with the kids? Could you look that up real quick while we're talking? Because
I'm sure to slap him around.
I'm sure you'll have the name by the time I get to his
Definitely.
name. Okay, so anyway, the path or the journey of the ring. Okay, now we're first introduced to the ring when old face Andre is talking to Marlowe about a package he lost to Omar, right? And Omar, as we know from the early seasons, is the stick-up kid, one of the most feared men in Baltimore, right? So when old face Andre got robbed, he was basically going to Marlowe to try to get some leniency because it's Omar. And of course, Marlowe being a bloodthirsty kingpin, he was not moved. And so
bloodthirsty.
Let him know that, yes, you need to continue to pay what you owe regardless of what happened after you got it. So you still need to pay. But not only that, as a de facto interest payment, he took old face Andre's ring. And it looks like the ring is...
Oh, we got to call that man Old Face Andre.
Old face Andre kind of had old face.
He did.
He probably had it for a long time.
He kind of had old face.
You only get the nickname Old Face if you had it since you should have had a young face.
Exactly. So who knows? Old face might be 25 years old. We don't know. He's old face. So then Marlo has the ring. Now, the funny thing is, Marlo has the ring and he's wearing it at a card game. And who comes to rob the card game but Omar? And it's very interesting.
Love him and
because hate him. Omar is the reason why he had the ring in the first place.
There you go.
Because Omar robbed Old Face Aubrey, which made him talk to Marlo. And now Omar not only robs the entire game.
So good.
But he also takes the ring that he was responsible for getting to Marlo in the first place. So now Omar has the ring. Now, as Omar is walking around now wearing the ring, because see, the thing about Omar robbing, it's not just about the money. It's about taking from people who are not supposed to be robbed. And so the fact that he has this ring that he stole off of Marlo is a big trophy for him.
And it's really just for him. He's not wearing the ring to flash it around.
I don't need that ring.
Just for him.
No.
It's just for him.
It's just for him.
He's not walking outside in silk pajamas.
Now, we put a pin in that one.
Put a pin in it.
Put a pin in that one.
Circling back.
All right. Yeah, we're going to circle back. Yeah, I feel like I'm back in corporate. We're going to go ahead and put a pin in that.
Put it in the parking lot.
Exactly.
We'll circle back.
All right. So now Omar has the ring. And the officer, his name is...
Eddie Walker. Officer Walker.
Officer Walker. You're so awesome tonight. Yes.
So corrupt.
Wonder siblings powers activate. All right. So anyway, Officer
That's how they activate.
Officer Walker.
And my superpower is note taking. That's what I was leveraging the superpower of note taking.
Well, that's one of your many. Okay. All right. So, as in derailing the story.
Sorry, you're right.
Okay. All right. So now Officer Walker comes up on Omar, and the reason why Officer Walker comes up on Omar is because in order to catch Omar, who's been robbing the Marlo Stanfield organization, they decided not to do any of the traditional means that were so successful for the Barksdales. So they were going to do something out of the box. And what they decided to do, Old Face Andre runs his package out of a store. So they actually had Chris Partlow murder an innocent woman who was just delivering groceries to Old Face Andre's store. He murders her and makes Old Face Andre identify Omar as the killer. So now basically they have the whole city of police looking for Omar. So Officer Walker sees Omar, identifies him, coming out of a store, and Officer Walker is crooked. And when he arrests Omar, he pulls off the ring and takes it, to which this offends Omar on a very deep level, because Omar is all about the rules. And it's like, I'm a crook. This is what I do. I rob people. You're a cop. You're supposed to stop people like me. But yes, he actually He took the ring. So now Officer Walker has the ring. And now that Officer Walker has the ring, Officer Walker is crooked and he's cruel. And he's very cruel.
He's the worst. He's literally the worst.
He's very cruel.
He's cute, but he is the worst.
Hashtag priorities. All right. So anyway, Officer Walker harasses these young kids, which they are juvenile delinquents, but
harass is an understatement.
Harass is an understatement.
He is really.
Hold on.
Being a butthead.
Pin in that one. Come back to that one. Pin in that one. Okay. But yes, he is, as my sister said, a butthead. So,
big time.
With him being such a butthead, he does things like, basically, one of the kids got caught almost got caught stealing a car, but he ran. Officer Walker caught up with him and actually broke his fingers instead of turning him in. And so that's an example of how he is. And so they decide it's time to get back at him. And so what they do is they orchestrate a plan where they key his car in front of a club they know he goes to, which makes him chase them into an alley. And then Michael pulls out a gun, stops him, and they pour yellow paint all over him. So his car was keyed, and over his nice fancy outfit, he got yellow paint now. Now, Michael, who's becoming increasingly hard, decides
we watch his youth, his innocence
just evaporate.
Right down the drain.
Another pin. And he, in fact, robs Officer Walker and takes the ring and then wears it in a necklace around his neck so that Officer Walker won't catch him with it, so they won't know. They all have masks on, so he doesn't want to know. And then the ring ends up there in Michael's possession. But the funny thing is at the end of the season, Marlo, who is Michael's new boss, comes to check on him, and he sees the ring. And it's so funny because the last Marlo saw of it was
on his finger.
It was on his finger until he got taken by Omar.
The Omar.
And so he's like, where did you get that? He's like, I took it from somebody. And he was like, you want it? Because he doesn't understand the history of all he knows, he took it off of Officer Walker. And so I just thought that was such a fascinating story because it shows how the power just bounces back and forth through all these factions and nobody ever really has it. And that's what it was just a great symbolic, it was a great symbol for the journey of this
100%. 100%. While you have it, all you're doing is fighting to keep it. But it wasn't yours to begin with. It doesn't belong to you, and you gonna lose it. You gonna lose it. Oh,
let me ask you guys this. When we talked about season 4 right from the beginning, I told you this one was going to be the hard one. This one was going to be the tough one. So let me ask you flat out: was I right? Did you feel the way I felt when I went through this journey of season 4?
Wow, I will say that every season has been a hard season.
Got that right.
I'm not looking at any of these seasons like, season 2 was just too much. I'm like, seasons 1 through 4 are too much. Okay?
They're all too much. Got you.
They're all too much.
So it wasn't any more too much than the other too much.
I think that it was more of a reflection that I was doing because I don't know about the two of you, but I just started thinking about people I knew in school growing up. People that I knew that used to come to school, maybe had the same clothes on, maybe smelled, a little, they didn't smell very clean. I just remember those things. And as a kid, most kids are teasing and things like that. I've always been a little more heartfelt, but most kids are teasing and things like that. But I never thought about that this person may have someone at home that is on drugs and stealing their clothes. They may not know that they don't have any water running in the house to take a bath. These were things that as a kid you're not thinking of. So it was just really like, wow, how many people have I known that have had this story and they're at school and they're basically doing the best they can. They're doing the best they can. So this season was really reflection in that way.
For me, and it's so funny because it's this season, but it's also just the state of the world right now. There's so many things that are happening right now that are just reminding me about how much greed and hate are the driving forces for everything. And that
so much.
To the extent that people thrive, and in particular people of color, it is in overcoming that. That there is always a starting point that is somewhere being oppressed by greed and hate. And so that's what I felt while I was watching it. I just felt, damn, it's like it's just a setup for failure from the very beginning. So the heartbreak was real. And bro, I think for me, it was heavier than the other seasons. And it was heavier because it is little boys. It's little boys. The kids are present in every season because they are the drug runners, they're the hoppers. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, we hadn't looked deeply into their stories.
Right.
So we felt bad, but now we got to understand the larger tragedy and just sit in the implications.
Right.
So, yeah, bro, for me, this was the heaviest season.
Yeah. And it makes more sense about Michael B. Jordan's character in season 1. Just that you see why he was raising those babies. They didn't have anyone else.
Man, it's such a good point and I think that makes really great TV when you can make a story compelling even in season 1, but then like you're saying, we get to season 4 and it's even deeper.
Yeah.
And I think that we could just go through some of these stories and talk about how well they were written. When you look at these kids, I think that all of them have an equally compelling story. I guess first we can talk about Randy. And the reason why we could talk about Randy is because his story spidered out to a lot of things that were happening in the rest of the season. Because Randy is one of these young kids who one of the boys on the corner got him involved in a murder, unbeknownst to Randy. Yeah. And because of this, Randy, when he found himself backed into a corner, getting in trouble based on something he did, now he's using the murder as a way to be able to get himself out of trouble. But obviously, we all know once that cat is out the bag, it's out the bag. So when he reported it to his, teachers or principal, they had to get involved, and it spread out to the police. It spread out to the streets and the community. And the crazy thing about it is that we saw all this impact, and it showed such an interesting character because Randy was snitching. He was telling on somebody literally just to save himself, but he's a kid.
And he's just a kid. And what makes Randy also a really interesting story is that if he had not been dragged into things unknowingly, and his participation in certain things, it was so minimal, know. But exactly. if he had not been dragged in unknowingly, frankly, Randy is one of the ones that might have made it all the way through this.
Absolutely.
Without getting involved in drugs. He had a strong foster home that he was staying in. He had stability. He was able to kind of lean into his entrepreneurial instincts. He's like buying candy wholesale, doubling the price, selling it to his classmates, really running his hustle, being super thoughtful about it. And he was able to engage with friends that were engaging in the drug trade, but be on the periphery. And if he had not been dragged in by, again, it wasn't even his own doing, it wasn't even intention, he probably would have made it all the way through. He really truly wasn't on the verge, I think, of making some of those decisions about becoming a partner.
Well, he had a plan.
Totally.
He said, I want to have my own store. Like, he was already focused on that from the beginning. And then when we get to the end of his story, where not only now, since he's been labeled a snitch because he put this information out there, it affected him, physically. He got accosted a few times, but not only that, his foster parent was injured in a fire, that was set as a result of him snitching. And now, since she's in critical condition in the hospital, he now goes back to the bottom of the list to get into another foster home, which means he has to go to a group home, which is really worse than jail in a lot of ways when you're thinking about it in the context of being a small child there, in a circumstance where everybody thinks you're a snitch. And I'm telling you all, two of the best scenes came from Randy. The one where Officer Carver said to him that one last time, we're going to look out for you. Like the police have been saying the whole time, and they've never looked out for him so far. And this was when he was in the hospital with his foster mother. And Officer Carver's like, I'm so sorry, we're going to look out for you. Randy doesn't say anything. And then when Officer Carver's walking away, he's like, oh, you going to look out for me? You going to look out for me? You going to look out for me? And he keeps saying, oh!
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many powerful scenes related to him.
And the other one just was when Carver was in the car after he dropped him off. And he just realized how helpless he was. Mm-hmm. And he was just, when he dropped him off at the group home and there was just nothing he could do, and he just was, and the one part I liked is when he pushed away the rearview mirror. Like he can't even look at himself.
Look at himself.
And and bro, as you're talking about Randy's story, it is certainly tragic. And what makes it so tragic, as we said, is that he might have had a different path. There's another one of the little boys that might have had a different path. And I want to just let you all know, I'm being intentional about calling them little boys. We are so
because they are.
We're so quick to even just say in a way like, oh, look at that young man. And you know what? Why are we working so hard to make little boys grow up? And here we are in this circumstance where they have no choice. So I just wanted to name that. I'm being intentional about naming these are little boys. Think about you. I'm thinking about what did I know in the eighth grade about life? Boppers. These are children. They're little babies. Okay. And so one of the little babies is Dookie. And he is one. And sis, you were talking about, just reflecting on kids that we grew up with that were obviously outwardly showing the circumstances of, what is clearly poverty, right? Yes. And we got to look at Dookie's life. His story is that he had drug addicted parents that took things from him. He couldn't be clean. He couldn't have food because whatever he had, even as the school and the community were trying to feed him, trying to clothe him, his drug addicted family would take from him. And we found him becoming close with a specific teacher. And in this case, it was actually Presbalewski, the cop that, again, didn't live in the consequences he should have. But is now a teacher in the public school system. That's
a thing.
And he has really taken Dookie under his wing, and Dookie he's looking cleaner than he's ever looked. He's looking better nourished. And because of rules that keep children moving through the system, regardless of their actual academic merit, regardless of their readiness from a socialization perspective to move, Dookie was forced into high school out of 8th grade sooner than he was ready to go. Social promotion. And so he ends up feeling so nervous about going into high school and going back to that experience of not having anyone to take care of him. He was so scared about that rather than even trying high school, even though he was clearly academically gifted, rather than trying high school, he just went to the streets. He didn't even go. So now we have a bright young man that literally gave up at the age of 13, gave up on education. Not that education would have done right by him anyway.
Hello.
But he gave up at the age of 13. So
and what you're talking...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying what you're talking about right there shows one of the best parts, I think, of shooting in this series, because you just went on a whole explanation. But they did that with just showing him walk up to the school and just look at it and just walk away. You know, but it was just
we knew the characters so well. We knew the characters so well that we could recite their inner dialogue out loud.
Just like you just did.
You could name it.
You can name it.
It was
and
so
I
well
will
written.
say, just to this point about Przybylewski being now a teacher, an educator, something about that frustrated me because I think about so often how we have teachers who are not actually just wanting to be a teacher. This is not something they have desired to do. I remember myself when I was looking for a job, at one point they were like, "Oh, Brittany, you can be a substitute teacher for some time." And I'm a business major. I have 2 business degrees. I've worked in corporate America. Like I've not had any training other than maybe, dealing with church things, dealing with children. And so it was something I did not do. Now, I'm not saying you can't find a passion. You can't, I am not saying that. But what I am saying is that it really speaks to the fact that we will throw someone in to education because we just need someone there. We need a warm body.
Yep.
And the fact when Przybylewski started, his certification wasn't even done. He wasn't even technically ready to be a teacher. And so, but the need is great, right? For it to have educators there because there's so many children. But then the quality of the situation, that is really, that really just, it made me, quite frankly, it made me upset. Because the children even at more of a disadvantage.
Because yeah, we're trying to do better at cutting each other off, people. But this is a very emotional season.
We're also trying to talk in shorter. We're trying to talk less, and it's so hard. There's so much to say.
But I'm
saying each topic.
Because the thing about this whole line with Presbo is that him being a teacher now, coming from the Baltimore City Police Department, there's a lot of reasons to be frustrated. And it's like, first of all, we're frustrated because of all the things he did. He really got off easier than a lot of people would have just because of how he was positioned in terms of the nepotism. But beyond that, seeing that he was just going to this, he was on the search to find something more meaningful. So I can see that. But the fact that he was able to do it so easily is sad, just like Brittany said, because it's like, you're not prepared to go in here. This is war up in here. And you need training or something or some type of something to prepare you to not think these kids are just going to sit at the desks with their names on it.
And like you do what you ask them to do.
You need to know that. You need to know how to deal with that. But the other side of it is they can't even attract the real talent because it goes to the politics. And now the salaries aren't, so just being able to show all of that in one continuous storyline. I mean, I just thought that was amazing. It
was beautifully done. Writing. It was beautifully done. And I love the way that they used the Przybylewski character, who the children affectionately called Mr. Presbo.
Right.
Oh, I love the way that because that's so real. That's what the kids would actually do. That's why I love that. You know. And so we got to see through his character, we got to see, I would say, pretty much the full teacher spectrum. He was there as the newbie. He walks in thinking he's about to have a certain kind of discipline in the room. And we get to see the most seasoned teachers all the way at the other end of the spectrum that are saying things like, you need to have soft eyes. And what do they mean by that? They're saying have soft eyes. Focus on the big picture. Don't worry too much about crossing every T, dotting every I. Just get the word spelled. Get the gist.
Can I interject in there 1 second? Because that, what you just talked about, is one of my favorite parts. Because they mentioned soft eyes. One of the senior teachers was talking to Presbo, but she said you need to have soft eyes, and they just let it go there. And then, like episodes later, you heard that same term come up when Kima was investigating a murder scene. And that's when that's when Bunk explained what soft eyes is. And I just thought that was great writing, because it's like you're bringing in this, we all kind of understand what it meant when she said it, but it was like to bring that throwback that, look, the same skill sets you need to work in certain parts of this city and this ecosystem of Baltimore, you need that anywhere in order to be able to tackle this city.
But and bro, it's so interesting that you use the word skill set. And it is a skill set, but it's the saddest skill set there could be. Because what it actually is we're watching people who are in the rookie phase of something have hope. And you're watching the people who are more experienced say, let it go.
Oh, tragic.
Which shout out to the teachers, because they absolutely use some actual Baltimore city teachers, which was funny because I was saying to Aubrey and Janiyah, like, some of these teachers aren't really acting that well. And I was like, are they real teachers? And Aubrey was like, yeah, some of them were. So I just appreciate them bringing in that real element of Baltimore.
It was very real.
Mm-hmm.
It was so real.
Very real.
And you know what? I think the one child that we can talk about, and we talked about him a little bit already, that I think can help us kind of segue a little bit more into digging into what was happening with Marlo and some of the local drug activity, is the story of Michael. You know, and I know, sis, what made you sigh? What made you sigh about Michael?
Michael just wanted to go to school and protect his little brother.
Oh, that's all he wanted to do, Brittany.
That's all he wanted to do. He wanted to go to school, protect his little brother, and make sure that he was fed and make sure that he had food. And that was it. His mother...
Did you hear that? He wanted to make sure he was fed and he had food.
Exactly.
I know. I'm talking about the younger one.
But Britt, that didn't sound funny to me, because the mother, who was drug addicted, kept stealing the food out of the house.
Yes.
So it was two separate battles.
Okay, you're right.
Have the food. And again, wanting to make sure that
Aubrey... you had a meeting?
Do you see?
Wanting to make sure that
Aubrey older brother does.
Wanting to make sure that Aubrey's incorrect.
Number one.
Did you two have a meeting?
Number one.
I can see
wrong.
that. I can see that point.
You was trying to play me. You was trying to play me.
I can see. Work. Why do you all have to keep dancing on it after I said I'm wrong? Why do you got to keep sticking it in there?
And you know,
I say it one more time. You was wrong, and.
But we interrupted you have food. Where were you going?
I don't want to lose my current alliance with Brittany when I say this, but I do want the audience to know that what you're watching, it's just like The Ring. Brittany's alliance shifts. You never know. She's a wild card. Okay.
Listen. Let's be.
She's like The Ring.
Those two have been against me my whole life.
All right, we're getting off topic.
But now I know how to play them.
It's relevant. It's relevant. It's about power.
It's relevant.
It's about relationships.
Now,
it's about betrayal. It's about betrayal.
Can you please pick up my food, Brittany? I was very much, even though I had to joke that one, I wanted to hear what you were saying.
As Jediah stated, Michael's mother, she was on drugs, and she would sell the food so she could buy drugs. And you could see Michael wanting to love his mom and wanting her to be better. But she just wasn't.
Oh
and
my
she
God.
just couldn't.
What about when Michael said, when he was walking with Randy, and Randy was like, man, she got me on a leash, a tight leash. And Michael was like, at least you got a leash.
At least you have a leash. Michael.
Can you imagine being a child and investigating
and wanting that
and pondering, should I turn myself into the system because it might be a better reality for me?
You guys, he was literally thinking about turning him and his brother in. Okay, so of course we see Michael. We know he is this young man who is basically just trying to make it in his circumstances. In doing that, he does sell drugs sometimes, but after he paid off a debt that he had to Bodie, he was done with it. He didn't want to do anything else with it. He just wanted to go to school and feed and make sure his brother got his homework done and they both would eat. That was it. That was Michael's focus. Michael even started going to the gym that we know, not Smitty. Cuddy.
And he did his homework. He was doing his homework too.
He was doing his homework. Cuddy, he was going to this gym, but you started seeing his interaction with Cuddy whenever Cuddy was trying to be very loving in a way, in a sense, toward him, be a mentor towards him. You could see Michael wanting to trust him, but Michael couldn't trust him, and especially not a man. And you find out later on, they don't say it explicitly, but you do know that he was touched in some way by his younger brother's father. He was molested. That's the word I'm looking for. He was molested by his younger brother's father.
And they never really went into it, just like you said. They
never went into it. They never went into it, but you knew that it happened because why? Because Michael of who he is, and he's very strong in his personality, Marlo at one point was going around the neighborhood giving the kids $200, $100 for their school clothes. But really what Michael knew was that means that now you give me something, I'm going to have to do something for you. And as we know, Michael just wants to what? Go to school, take care of his little brother, and eat. That's it. Well, he doesn't take the money. Marlo and Chris and Snoop are like, Marlo and Chris are taking it back. Like, he doesn't want the money. Who is this kid? They start to pursue him to be a part of Marlo's organization. And that is where we start to see Michael become more hard. We start to see Michael get a family.
You got to speak on what happened. How Michael, because when
you're talking about
how
he decided to stay in. Okay, and
because that's an important story. How he got hooked up with the Stanfield.
Right, you're talking about Chris and Snoop, right?
Yes,
that part.
Absolutely.
Right, exactly.
Because that's how he got in.
Yes, and so what happens is that his younger brother's father comes home. And of course, this is trauma. And so he's like, Mom, why did you even let him back in? Now the father is trying to show he's supposed to be in jail. The father is trying to show that he has become a different person, but we know. Does the apple fall too far from the tree? And so what happens is you see Michael being upset about this, wanting to feverishly protect his little brother. And you see Michael at the end of his rope when he goes to pick up his little brother one evening, like he always does from an after-school program, and his brother is not there, and he has been picked up by his father. When I tell you Michael became a track star that day, he ran home so fast, grabbed up his little brother, and that caused him to now reach out to Chris and Snoop. Who have been, when I tell you guys, pursuing him giving him money in his hand so he can keep it, saying, I know you need something, not allowing him to give it back at this time. He goes and seeks out Marlo and Chris and them where they normally are in the park. And basically, he puts a hit out on his younger brother's father. And his younger brother, the father, Chris and Snoop, they kill him. However, this is different from what Chris and Snoop do, right? Normally, they take someone in, they shoot him, the person's dead, they wrap him up, they put a little sawdust on top of him, we're done. And they use the shotgun, they use the nail gun that Snoop purchased for like $800. But in this instance, you then saw trauma happening in the hood. A piece of Chris you just didn't know. Chris understood why Michael wanted him gone. And then so Chris said to him when they were about to kill him, you like touching little boys. And he was like, what? No, that, basically trying to reason himself out of it. You guys, Chris beat him up. He beat him to death. He didn't shoot him. Chris beat him to death. And why? Because you knew that resonated with Chris.
Well, let me ask you this.
So many levels.
I'm curious because everything the whole way they constructed that story was subtle, right? Like, because Michael never explicitly said it. And even when he was communicating it to Chris, it was kind of like he just looked at him. And I was wondering, I wanted to ask you both this. When we saw the rage that Brittany just described of how Chris beat this dude to death, do you think that Chris may have been molested as a child?
100%. That's what I was saying.
I think that's what they were trying to say. Mm-hmm. What about you, Janai?
And I also think that there's the innocence as well. I know, and this is the dichotomy when it comes to what they do. They still recognize them that they're children. And so they're upset at someone molesting you as a child. But in the same breath, you're a grown man now. You're part of the drug deal. You're part of the drug game. So it's this weird cross that they have, but I absolutely 100% believe that it happened to Chris.
You know what? If Chris had not, either he had been molested or he had a loved one that had been, he witnessed it. But I think that the thought of a man violating a child, an adult violating a child, is disgusting.
So
it is disgusting. And let's just say I was a professional murderer.
Too often.
Let's just say I was a professional murderer. And I might normally be able to go about murders without emotion. I could see myself being so disgusted that I would just get emotional because, it's just disgusting. It's just so unfortunate.
They always tell people, oh, we're going to do it quick. Don't worry. And they shoot him in the head.
Because it's business. It's business.
This Chris wanted him to feel every piece of that death.
He did.
Totally.
And he did.
Yeah. It was like he was beating his molester.
And now after that, Michael's story closes up in the season with him committing a murder as payment. Because now that he got the organization to do that, he's in now. Now it's time for him to do the work, and that was just.
And can we just look at these two extremes really quickly? Here we have Przybylowski that has killed a man and still had every option in the world. Could have done whatever job he wanted to do next. No options were taken from him. And Michael, a little boy who, because when you're an adult, you have to live in your circumstances and in the consequences of your decisions because you know better. But this is a little boy, and this little boy had two options. He had three options: stay with my molester and my drug addicted mother, go to drug dealers for help, or number 3, put me and my brother in the foster care system and possibly get separated
and never see my brother again, because they don't keep good records. And there's no way to, because the stacks are miles high. There's no way to keep good records.
And
and the other part of this is that when he gets into this family of the Marlowe, his life is better, right? Marlowe sets him up an apartment.
Mm-hmm.
Now Michael has a safe place for his brother. The food is there. You don't have to worry about the food being taken, but he has to murder people. But this is also the other part of it. It's a safe place for Dookie now. Because why? Dookie's family got evicted and all their stuff was just out on the street. Where's his family? Who knows? Somewhere on the street.
And they weren't looking for him either. And they weren't looking for him either. And we didn't even talk about that because that's how his arc ended. And the last one,
you have 3 children living in an apartment by themselves. I just have to say that.
And the last kid I think we really got to talk about is Naaman, of course, because and I if I can, I'll speak on Naaman because his story I also felt was so good how all of these boys were in hopeless situations, but they were all in hopeless situations for different reasons. And Naaman was a very special case because Naaman is Weebay's son. And Weebay, as we know, is one of the hardest gangsters to ever gangster. I mean,
Weebay is in jail chilling right now.
Weebay's in jail for
wearing it like a badge of honor.
For confessing to 22 murders or 21 or 22, however many it is. But
Weebay ain't never getting out of there, y'all.
Yeah, well, Weebay's not going out. But the point is that this is Naaman is Weebay's son, and Naaman is in a circumstance where he's born into drug lord royalty, and everybody. But here's the fun thing, if you will, because of how, his dad is, he never had to deal with the same things coming up that a normal corner boy would, because nobody in their right mind is going to touch the family of Weebay, right? So and so now basically what happened is he's in school. There's still, him and his mom are still living off of the proceeds from the Barksdale organization. But eventually, after a few years, that dries up. His mother put him back on the corner. His mother put him on the corner. Like, you have to step up. And I just felt like that was very bold for them to show the depths of this, because I mean, that is, when you think about your mom,
that character.
She played that character. It was so, so good. And
wait till I tell Bay about this.
I mean, you just started to wonder about her life experience.
Exactly.
Without even going into it, you could tell there's probably a whole story that could be the Weebay, what's her name? Delonda, I think it was a story. And so anyway,
hood rat sweethearts. That's what they were.
So Naaman is so bad in school that Officer Colvin, who used to be Officer Colvin, is now working in the schools, and he's created with some investors and stuff a special program with a university research university to bring out the most disruptive students, which of course Naaman is one, because Naaman is always trying to act out so that he could live up to his family name. He's always acting out. And so, long story short, through this program, we realized that Naaman is not a gangster. He's just not. He is just not. And there comes a point where after he's back on the corner, he has to discipline one of his lieutenants. He couldn't do it. He got Michael to do it, and Damon straight up ran away because he just can't be in this world. And so what ends up happening is Officer Colvin took him into his home, which what I'm saying is I love how they started all of these students in the same place, hopelessly, basically. And they're just showing the reality that, sometimes somebody gets lucky and there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just, which is even more tragic.
I want to rephrase one thing you just said. They didn't start out hopelessly. We watched them. Some were able to retain the hope of the future.
Yes.
One was able to retain the hope of the future.
Right.
And the others, we watched it. We
watched it
be ripped away.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Because at the beginning, they all had hope. They all had it.
Yes.
And only one was able to make it through retaining it. And it was because there was an intervention. There was something outside of his circumstance that came and not just pointed him in another direction, actually removed him from the context.
Yes.
And so that's one officer, the retired officer that we saw, really, really become a part of this conversation about the education system. You mentioned another one, bro, which is Carver. We watched Carver. Again, he is growing as an officer. He's had some great tutoring. He's finally taking feedback that he's received from the more seasoned officers, and he's starting to have a level of investment in the community. But unfortunately,
I also think it's because he's away from Herc.
You know what? I never thought of that. But you're right. As many times I've seen The Wire. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Poison.
Yeah. Being away from Herc. It's funny. I never noticed that. But yeah, being away from Herc is definitely a good thing.
He is so poison.
He's the worst.
He's the reason why Randy got beat up, and that's a whole nother thing we can't get into.
Why did you
sorry.
Why did you even?
I hate Herc.
Herc is the absolute worst.
I'm sorry, sis. Please finish your statement.
Well,
I think we had to chill on that for a second about how Herc was the worst. I think that was time.
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Because he was the worst.
He was the absolute worst.
One thing I do want to say to your point, sis, about what you were just talking about, seeing the hope take away. We're seeing the hope take away, but what I do want to mention is that Michael, in his own way, is trying to give hope to his little brother. I think Michael is doing everything he can to protect him, make sure he's going to school. And he's probably going to be one of those ones where his little brother is probably going to grow up and say, I want to do what you're doing. Michael's like, no, I'm doing this so you don't have to. You're going to college and you're going to be different. I didn't get an opportunity, but you will. And I'm doing everything in my power to make sure that this happens.
And you know what, sis? I'm happy you brought us back to that point, because I want to rephrase yet again. We still have not seen hope lost in these boys. And that is because until you are dead, hope is never lost.
You still have some hope.
You always have a chance to find
Janiyah, I don't know what happened. Your voice is much lower.
You've gotten low.
Yeah.
Is this better? I don't know what I've done to ruin anything.
This is better.
Yeah, I don't know. Are you still on your mic on the?
Yeah, I didn't change
the audio
the settings.
Huh.
I'll click out of it and then. Okay, can you hear me now?
Okay,
it's
we
better,
hear you, but
it's louder,
it's
but
very
it's
different.
Okay,
it's not the microphone.
Now I'm back to the microphone.
Perfect.
It's working again.
Much better. You're good.
You know what? It could also be about my internet somehow, because my internet is not super stable. But the point I wanted to make was, we actually can see, as we were talking about Carver, what were we talking about? We were talking about someone that, frankly, was the absolute worst and is now somehow becoming becoming a person that we feel has some redemptive value. And we have a case of a person who was Wee-Way and has now completely taken a different path in life. And that's Cuddy, right? We get to see what happens. And so I want us to be really careful, because I think part of why the education system is the way it is because they are ready to write people off. They are ready to say, there's no use in investing there. The, options are few. It's there's no redemption there. There's no hope there. And so until you are dead, and let this be a lesson to all of us, until you are dead, hope remains. And so, all right, we see Michael in a situation right now he didn't choose. None of them chose this. But I still believe that they could find lives that are fulfilling for them. I believe
yeah. I mean, because Cuddy is the example.
Perfect.
And look, we only got a few minutes left, and the last story, Janelle, I want you to speak on this one because you're dramatic.
Absolutely, I am.
Brittany's dramatic too, but you're both dramatic. But I want Jania's specific brand of dramaticness.
I'll get ready
to talk about Bubble's storyline.
Bro, you've come to the right place.
Listen.
You've come to the right place with this storyline.
Listen.
I'm gonna have to give this one, really, really, and this is one of those things. I let me just say, Bubbles, the character, could have his own show.
Love him.
With several episodes.
With several episodes in season.
Just about him.
Just about him because of the complexity of this character. Mm-hmm. We don't know any of the details. We don't know we're not in the weeds of his life. By the time we met Bubbles, he was on the street. He was homeless. Drugs had taken over his life. But we do know that he has never really, really found peace in that lifestyle. Mm-hmm. He's never found peace in that lifestyle. And we have watched him be an informant for the police officers over the last couple of seasons. And in his mind, it's almost like a part-time job, right? Because again, it's like he is not fully settling into his life as an addicted person that is homeless. It's always like he's hoping he's hoping for something to pull him out, to give him a chance to somehow redeem him, And so this season we watched him with his current hustle, which is he buys some goods wholesale and he sells them. It's whatever the community needs. I think we saw him selling T-shirts. We saw him selling tape. We saw him selling
condoms,
candles. It was spray paint. People were putting in orders, okay, and he was called, and he has a little sign on his cart that's
Bubbles Depot. Bubbles Depot.
Bubbles Depot. And so you're just watching him struggling against this addiction, and what made him so interesting this season is that he befriended. And I think friend is not even the right way to qualify this relationship.
Yeah.
He took on what he really started calling a mentee.
I'm getting hurt just thinking about it.
A mentee or an intern. And this was a young man that absolutely had been forgotten by the school system.
We don't even know his parents
Forgotten by the community. We know, as far as we can tell, he's an orphan. We have no sense of his family. And in fact, he latches on to Bubbles. It wasn't that Bubbles recruited him. This was a young man just looking for anyone to take care of him or give him structure. Mm-hmm. Okay? And he latches on to Bubbles and becomes Bubbles' counterpart. And he's now his partner. He gets his own cart eventually with Bubbles Depot. And Bubbles is getting to know the young man and realizing that the boy cannot do, and he's got to be a good 15 years old. He cannot do basic math. We're talking about addition and subtraction. Okay? Cannot do it. And it's unfortunate for us because we don't know if it is a learning disorder or if if it is
lack of education, we don't know.
It's just the
Lack
fact
of
that
education.
he literally stopped going to school somewhere around I think he was saying like he had missed 3 years of academics.
Yep.
And that was an estimate. They weren't even sure. So Bubbles, in his drug addicted state, is coaching the young man to go and get some education. And you can also see that Bubbles is keeping the boy away from drugs. He doesn't want the boy to do drugs, right? He's trying to mentor him. He's trying to coach him. He takes the boy to the school, enrolls him in the school.
Bubbles put on his good shirt.
His good shirt. He put on his good shirt.
Ironed it up.
On his good shirt.
Ironed it up.
He ironed it, y'all. He put on his good shirt.
Braided back to fro.
Listen.
Most of it. Didn't get all
Most of it, but most of it.
He did his best.
Most of it braided.
He did his best.
And he went and he enrolled the boy in school. I wish we had more time. Long story short, the child, he tried. They wouldn't put him in a grade. They didn't even test him to find out his reading level or his comprehension, his abilities. They just looked at him, looked at his age, and put him in a class. And guess what? Because of everything we've talked about earlier, his instructor was not able to meet him where he was not able to support him. And the boy is in the class. Even when we watch him trying, he can't participate. He doesn't know what is going on. It is not a good use of his time. And so he leaves. Bubbles tries again.
Bubbles says to the principal when they're putting him in there, like, Bubbles was confused when they were putting him in the grade he was in.
And Bubbles said, if he's missed about 3 years, shouldn't he go back to that grade that he's struggling? He can't keep up. Bubbles brings him back and tries to get him enrolled to school again. Long story short, Bubbles is not able to help this young man matriculate because guess what? The school is not helping. All right, Bubbles did his step, which was to get the boy to the school. The school did not rise to the occasion. And so at this point, oh gosh, there's so much complexity here we just can't get into. Long story short, Bubbles, as he is trying to mentor this young man, has found himself in a predicament where he is being attacked. Bubbles is being attacked.
Like
There is a particular
drug addict.
I was going to use Brittany's word and really get harsh and call him a butthead.
There
was a butthead.
He's a butthead.
Butthead.
This butthead.
Ooh.
Listen, I might be more harsh than that. He was a jerk. I'm just gonna say it. I hate to use the
Listen. Whoa. Are you cursing?
This
All right.
Ron addicted jerk. He keeps repeatedly knocking over Bubbles Depot. And when I say knocking it over, I mean literally knocking it over. Knocking over, stealing the goods, stealing the money. And the whole thing started because Bubbles' mentee gave him the wrong change. And then listen, when Bubbles realized the change was wrong, Bubbles was correcting the math and giving the jerk the money. Listen, it was too late. And now the jerk, you know how some people are just bullies? You know, the jerks.
Well, I do gotta correct the one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Bubbles, the way that they met the guy is when the young man's name is Sherrod. And Sherrod, like Janai said, had taken to the streets and he was actually selling drugs. So he was selling while Bubbles was trying to pull him off the streets. And remember, he was selling drugs and the jerk, did I say it right? Jerk!
Finger up.
Jerk! The jerk, the addict was buying drugs off of Sherrod, right. But he was short. And he wasn't going to.
You need to know basic math to be a drug dealer. You do. You need the basics.
Well, but Sherrod was doing good in that sense because he knew he was $4 short. Mm-hmm. So the guy was $4 short. And basically when Bubbles came and started talking to Sherrod, that's when the jerk, butthead, drug addict attacked Bubbles to get his drugs and his money. And that's how it started.
Thank you for that correction, bro.
You guys.
And long story short, I know we got to rush.
There was a connection, though. Do you remember when Michael B. Jordan's, one of the kids, was trying to do math work? and Michael B. Jordan was like testing him about how much money for the drugs, and the little kid could like put it off, but they couldn't do the homework. This is the same thing with Sherrod. Sherrod is able to do the drug stuff, but then when he has to put it to the business, he's not able to do it. You guys,
he couldn't do it.
You got to write this one up.
We have to get to the end. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry.
To the end.
I'm
so sorry.
Not really dig into the complexity of this story, because there's so many things about Bubbles' experience that if we had time, you can draw lines from his experience to the things that the politicians are experiencing, to the things that the police officers are experiencing.
Which we did not even get into politics.
It is people stuck in their vices. That's what this show is about. People stuck in vices, people fighting for power.
Janai, I know. Janai. Listen, everybody, sometimes I got a real Janai.
Circling it back. And so. Here's how that storyline wraps. Bubbles,
I don't want it to wrap.
Bubbles and Sherrod, they had been estranged for a period of time in the show. Over the course of the season, they had made their way back to each other. Once again, Bubbles was mentoring him, and Bubbles had been going to now listen, for the last several seasons, Bubbles has been faithful to the police. When they have needed him, he has shown up. He has been the most reliable informant that they have had, okay? And he went to them for help. But unfortunately, he was directed to the dumbest of them all, as Brittany said.
Worst.
The police officer, because of a set of circumstances, it ended up being Herc, AKA the absolute worst, that was supposed to help. The most
selfish, just whatever.
And frankly, what we're talking about here is 10 minutes of Herc's time, maybe 15, to go and intervene on Bubbles' behalf to stop the jerk from robbing him and to protect Bubbles and Sherrod from this jerk. That's all Herc had to do. Herc didn't keep that promise. And because Herc kept letting Bubbles down, Bubbles didn't give up immediately. He kept waiting for the police to show up and return the favor. Herc kept letting him down. So Bubbles comes up with his own plan. And, any plan that a bunch of drug addicts get together and come up with is probably not going to be top notch. But Bubbles comes up with a plan with his colleagues. And the plan is to essentially sell poison to the drug dealer jerk that would kill him. And so
will not sell it.
But
he'll have it on him. So what Brittany said, he'll steal it from him.
He would steal it from. He would have him on. And so Bubbles, what was the poison? I can't remember what it was.
It was some type of.
I didn't write it down.
It doesn't matter.
But anyway, so he got the poison. He had it on him, and he was waiting to get mugged. It didn't happen for whatever reason that night. He goes to sleep. Sherrod, this young man that is so desperate for family, so desperate for structure, that he befriended a homeless drug addict and clung on to him for dear life, does some of the drugs overnight and essentially dies. And so Bubbles he knows what's happened. He has it accidentally killed Sherrod. And it's so unfortunate because he killed Sherrod with the plan that he concocted to protect Sherrod. Killed him. God. And so now we see Bubbles in the station, and he is saying, I have killed a man. He's dead. He tells the whole story, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And he is so, I don't even think heartbroken is going to sum it up. Nope. He is so racked with guilt over what has happened. He is so confused. It's like, how could the world fail him in this way? That he is completely hopeless. He tries to commit suicide. He tries to take his life because Bubbles, who has been able to find a glimmer of hope to keep living through all of these really difficult circumstances, taking a man's life, it stole Bubbles from us. So at the end of the episode, at the end of the season, Bubbles is still alive. He is absolutely, mentally, I think he's gone. He's gone. But because he has been a faithful informant to the police, they do end up basically kind of letting him off the hook for the murder of Sherrod. But he'll never be off the hook, folks. He's got to live with that. He's got to live with that. And I'm going to tell you, if there's one person that I want to see get adopted by someone, like I was so happy when Naaman got adopted by Bunny, by a retired Colvin. I just need someone to go and get Bubbles and take him away, get him into rehab, and give him a job, and he will live out.
He'll be amazing.
We're out of time. We have so much we didn't cover.
So look, what we'll say is that obviously, well, let's vote first. Let's vote.
There's so much.
So much. Obviously,
we didn't talk about the politicians.
We didn't get into that.
Look, this
correction.
This whole
correction. I say
this podcast has been a enjoyable learning process for all of us, and trying to tackle this whole season, for me in particular, in 1 hour is just impossible.
It's not.
So
it was
what I'll say is this is my favorite season, and I would just, so obviously it gets a ring from me, and I'm just telling you that if I'm definitely obviously recommending all series. I recommend it to my sisters, but this one in particular, when you're watching season 4, put your phone down, get focused, because it is an amazing season. So it definitely gets my ring.
Yeah, it definitely gets my ring too. It definitely gets my ring. I mean, I when I watched seasons 2 and 3, I said that I didn't feel that those seasons would have been able to stand alone without season 1. Mm-hmm. I believe that season 4 could have been a standalone. Like if we started The Wire with season 4, I still would have been hooked to the very end.
I agree.
Because of how well written, well portrayed, the amount of complexity. I mean, these characters, they sit with you. You ask them to leave and they won't leave because they're sitting with you. They won't leave.
They're right here. Bubbles
right here. They're right here.
Bubbles right here.
And so,
he's sitting off camera.
Bubbles, be quiet. And so it definitely gets my ring.
I took in Randy.
Randy's there?
I adopted him.
I'm glad.
Happy to hear
That's it. It's a weight off my mind. It's a weight off my mind.
Put that boy in a business class.
Okay, good.
I will definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, give season 4 my ring. It was just really amazing how they took you into the characters, and you found yourself, as you have all 3 seasons, including now all 4, but seeing these young boys, seeing these little boys, it just really took you to a different place because you feel helpless.
Yeah.
You feel helpless, and you wonder what the one fix-all the one fix-all thing, the one size fits all situation. And you would think it would be, get to the politics, make sure the money is there. Get to the teachers, make sure that they're teaching. Okay, get into the communities, make sure that this is happening.
It's all so broken.
It's all there, but it's all, for some reason, not enough. Mm-hmm. And it's so intricate as to why it is not enough. Mm-hmm. There's so many selfish motives that are outweighing community lives, the community forward movement. So it definitely gets a ring from me.
And I want to say 2 things really quickly. The first is that our family, the 3 of us, we have been all in different ways studying the law of attraction over years, coming back to it. And the thing about the law of attraction, it is a universal truth.
Mm-hmm.
But it only works when you can conceptualize something different. And the people that are in these circumstances, I mean, the options that they can conceptualize are just too few. And so even in manifesting the best version of reality that they could probably conceptualize, it's not going to necessarily be what you or I might conceptualize having if you've had a different circumstance. So I just wanted to name that. The second thing I wanted to say is I meant to say at the top, I wore my Wakanda shirt today in honor of Chadwick Boseman. We have to name, we are recording this podcast just days after he passed away. Chadwick Boseman, born November 29th, 1976, passed away August 28th, 2020. An American actor.
My birthday.
An American actor. We both went to Howard University, and we actually had some overlap there. And, he passed away of cancer. And this is after a career of playing, of basically telling the story, some of the most important stories that have been told in Black cinema in a very long time. Okay. I mean, we are talking about the story of Jackie Robinson. We are talking about playing James Brown and Get On Up. We're talking about, do I even need to say it? Black Panther. And so we have lost a great. And if we had more time, I would read, there's a poem that comes to mind. It's a Maya Angelou poem. I recommend everyone look it up. It is called When Great Trees Fall. And it is just about what happens when there's a loss that is so great. It resonates forever. It resonates forever. So we do want to say rest in peace, Chadwick.
Rest in peace.
Yes. And sending strength and love and support to his family and his loved ones. We honor you, Chadwick. Absolutely. We honor you.
We do.
Absolutely.
We honor you. So that's the Right Perspective. Our next episode will be, we are going to be, listen, I'm going to go ahead and say,
done. You're almost done. You're almost done.
We're going to finish up The Wire. So season 5 of The Wire, that episode will be released on Saturday, September 19th. This one that we're recording now will be up on Saturday the 5th. And then the next one will be out, recorded and posted by September 19th.
Because we'll be going live on the 13th.
Mm-hmm.
No. Well,
we have to figure out logistics.
Yeah, we got.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it will definitely be on all platforms, regardless of when it's recorded, on Saturday the 19th.
That's it.
You all, thank you so much for watching. And thank you for being with us right now as we're finding our rhythm, we're finding our voice, and frankly, just having some fun. So thank you for being with us.